Of the 3rd of September 2025. We will open this hui with karakia. Please feel free to join in. Me noi tātou. Whakataka te hau ki te uru, whakataka te hau ki te tonga. Kia mā kina kina ki uta, kia mā taratara ki tai. E hiaki ana te atakura, he tio, he hoka, he hauhu, ti hei, mauri ora. Welcome everybody. We have no apologies today, but noting Councillor Brown and Councillor Edwards are joining us online. Hopefully you both feel better soon as well. It is the time of year where viruses are going around, so thank you everyone else for being able to be here in person. We have no public comment today, so opening up the floor for any conflicts of interest. No conflicts of interest to declare. So we're moving on to agenda item 5. Welcome Miriam to the table. For the update on Council's climate change work. As always, please take the report as read. If there's anything you wish to highlight or any new information, please feel free to do so before questions.
Kia ora koutou. Thank you for having me. Just wanted to introduce this paper by just noting that the paper involves 2 rather lengthy update reports. One featuring 22 actions and the other 95 actions, and that the pathway, that 95 action document, involves a lot of updates that come from outside of council work. So just sort of noting that this is an opportunity for us to give you a lay of the land wider than what our council remit is. And I hope that it's helpful and informative for you. Thank you.
Thank you, Miriam. Any questions? Councillor Mitchell?
Sorry, I'll just find my notes here. Oh, yeah. I was just curious about the actual update papers in here, the couple of tables at the end, and whether those are going to be shared beyond this committee. Are they for this committee, or are they going to be shared on our website or anything like that?
Welcome to the table, Ian.
So the papers are public because they're up on our website already. So everything in the document is already publicly available. Whether or not it goes onto our council website, I don't know, Ian, if you want to jump.
They are on the council website, although we didn't really have a plan to share them through like social media channels. Usually those sort of papers don't attract a lot of attention, but if there's a desire for us to share those, then we can have we can talk to our communications team and consider that.
Thank you. I'm kind of agnostic really on whether we do share them. I was more checking if we were planning to share them. Although thinking about it, you know, we've shared the plan with our community, so keeping them updated on how it's progressing is possibly a good idea. And the reason I was asking was because I was in a meeting on Monday and I challenged some of our fellow councils in the region on the way they were kind of categorising progress on things, and I think it's probably only fair that I hold ourselves to the same standard. So there were a few things in there where I just kind of questioned the categorisation of things in terms of where we're at. And if I could just give a couple of examples. One is the Beltway Cycleway, which a year ago was reported as being underway, even though there had been no change on that action. And it talked about the northern and central sections of the cycleway had been completed. This year we're reporting that the Beltway Cycleway is complete, even though actually no further work has been done on it. And as defined in our own plan, the Beltway Cycleway connects Taita to Seaview. So in my view, if there was now a cycleway connecting Taita to Seaview, that project is complete. There's not, and certainly I'm not aware of any decision by this council not to build that other half of it. So I would kind of challenge the fact that that one's been determined to be complete.
Fair comment, councillor. So in this instance, we have relied on information supplied by the transport team on this. I think what might have happened here is that the scope of the project changed, and so they've assessed it as complete in terms of the project that was approved or the changed proposal that was approved, whereas when you compare it to the original plan, it's actually not complete because we haven't built that section that was supposed to be built. So my apologies in this particular case. I think we probably should have gone back to the original and compared it against that.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, we're literally giving page references to the original, and there are kind of 2 or 3 others as well. There's talk about a e-bike trial in Wainuyamata, which last year was reported as being underway. Now it's being reported as discontinued because the program has finished. If it was a trial and it's finished, then that is complete, but we're reporting it as being discontinued, and there are kind of 2 or 3 others in there, and I kind of felt like there was a bit of a disconnect between what we're reporting. There's another one about train station subway upgrades. Last year we reported actually 5 out of 6 things were complete. TITA is still underway, it's underway. This year we're reporting TITA is now complete, but we're still saying the whole project is underway, whereas my read of it is that project is also complete. So just an encouragement to be kind of careful about those, that level of reporting in future. And I think actually probably it is a good to share this update with our community and just make sure we're being 100% accurate on that. So thank you for that. I did have a question of detail about a couple of things in the same reports. One was the phasing out of natural gas at council facilities, and it makes particular mention of Huia and Douse. Are there other things beyond that still need to be changed out?
Yeah, there's still about 15 facilities that are still on gas, but some of them are really small. So we're talking about some facilities in the parks team that basically just showers in relation to sports fields, so that gas usage is very low. The big remaining users are effectively the Douse Art Museum, Walter Nash Stadium, the War Memorial Library, and the likes of the Event Centre. And when it comes to pools, we still have the Minimata pool, which is on the cards in the longer term for either a bigger upgrade or a big change, and the Stokes Valley pool. So there are still quite a number of big facilities. Having said that, looking at the latest stats on this, we have reduced gas consumption by about 50% roughly compared to the peak that we saw in 2019. So the big facilities like Huia coming out of gas is making a big difference because they are the bulk users of it. So they make a big difference.
Thank you. I was certainly aware of the impact we are making. It was more just kind of still what lies ahead. Can I just squeeze in one more? I know there are other hands up. My last one was about the Seaview Dryer, which is another transition project, replacing the dryer with a more carbon-friendly energy source. Has it been decided yet what exactly that is going to be replaced with?
Yeah, so that's going to be an electric boiler, and my understanding is that they are in the procurement phase for that, and it's scheduled to be operational in 2027 to replace the current gas-fueled dryer. And the interesting thing about this is that the gas consumption for that one facility is bigger than all of the council facilities combined. So that one change is actually quite a big impact.
Thank you for your questions, Councillor Mitchell. As per your first question, if you can send for any of the notes that you've made around those different points, they'll be really useful. If you send them to Miriam and CC me in, they'll be appreciated. We've got Councillor Shaw, then Councillor Brown.
Oh, thank you for the report, and I really like the traffic light update, which makes it easier to reading. I've just got a couple of questions. One of them was we had a really good presentation from a young man who presented on carpooling, and I see it's mentioned here that it's likely to be released in Hutt Valley. Do we know if there's any progress on that? I thought it was a really good idea given the traffic congestion we're going to come up with. Are we getting behind the idea of this carpooling?
So at this stage, it is just something that we are aware of happening. I don't have any dates around when that might become live or if it will become live, but we just wanted to put that update in that there is potentially something in the works. I would have to go back to the runner of that project to actually understand the detail.
Thank you. My second question, point 32 about eco-design being discontinued. I'm aware that Kokiri Marae are offering a really good service. Do we provide a contact or something if somebody's looking for this service? So if they're looking for that, do we provide a contact so it can direct them to Kokiri or where that service has been offered?
We do have some information on our website to replace what was previously there in terms of what people can do to make changes. I would have to come back to you around whether there's a specific reference to the Kokore Marae service, so we can take that as an action to follow up on.
Thank you, Councillor. Councillor Brown.
I just want to talk to the EV trial in Wainuiomata. That reporting is correct. The trial was for 2 years, and this year it did discontinue. So that is right.
Thank you, Councillor. Is there any further questions for officers? No, that being the case, I now get you to focus on page 7 and the recommendation that we are noting this comprehensive update and the implementation of Council's Carbon Reduction and Resilience Plan 2021 to 2031 and the Lower Hutt Climate Action Pathway. Do I have a seconder? Thank you, Councillor Mitchell. Is there any discussion? No, I'll make some short remarks. Just thank you to the officers for the work on this. Looking back 5 years ago when we didn't have any of this kind of information or reporting or even plans, it's nice to be able to see that we're tracking and that it is an ongoing piece of work. It's not complete, there's more to be done. And then it's not just sitting only with council, but with multiple partners as well. So thank you for providing the updates. It's really comprehensive and useful for us to kind of make some decisions for the next triennium as well. So I'm going to put the recommendations. All in favour say aye. Those opposed? I declare that carried. We're now moving on to page 38 for agenda item 6. So Miriam's staying at the table for reducing Hutt City Council's emissions associated with powering its facilities. Anything that you want to add, Miriam, at this time?
Just to note that as we go through our emissions reduction journey, and particularly during the phase out of fossil gas, we're going to be needing to look much more closely at our emissions that come from electricity, and noting that, as it says in the report, that fluctuation in the grid emissions factor is something that we need to be cognizant of when we're looking at achieving those reduction targets over the long term. So yeah, I hope that this paper's helped kind of bring some light to that and help you understand what some of those options might be moving forward.
Questions from councillors? Councillor Mitchell?
Thank you. I did have a question, but I found it answered very well in the papers, which was why that kind of top of that bar was growing the emissions from electricity. One question I do have is about this suggestion of having a solar farm at Wainuiomata landfill and how it could potentially generate a significant amount of cost effectivity for use across a range of council facilities. Presumably that would just become a ledger exercise, right? There's no way you can build a solar farm and only feed it into council facilities. We'd be selling it back to a company and buying back from a company, so it's a bit of a ledger exercise in terms of emissions from there.
That's exactly the type of question that we will have to work through that business case process. So in principle, the electricity could be quite cost effective, but the question is how do we ring fence it, so to speak, to make sure it sort of aligns with council's power consumption. I mean, in some ways that's no different to what a power supplier would do, because power is supplied in a particular way, but the electrons you get out of your socket are not necessarily the one generated at whatever wherever they produce it. So it's kind of a ledger exercise or an accounting exercise to ring fence that power and then sell the surplus. Or another option would be to say, okay, look, rather than council investing, we're making that available for someone else to invest, and then we might get a discounted rate to be the sort of the base load for that facility. So those are all options and questions to work through. But in principle, if it's feasible, it could provide a significant power source and do something with land that's currently can't be used for anything else.
Any further questions from members? No. If everyone can pay attention to page 38, we have two recommendations. Firstly, that we note the progress made on reducing energy-related emissions, and the challenges in relation to council's inability to control the carbon intensity of grid electricity. And 2, agrees that officers put forward a relative funding bid regarding the use of renewable energy certificates later in the year for consideration as part of the upcoming annual plan process. Do I have a seconder? Thank you, Councillor Parkin. Is there any discussion? Deputy Mayor Lawes.
Sorry. Thank you. I just want to thank the officers. This report's really good, and you're investigating everything to, help us with our power and to get the carbon levels down, or whatever it is we're doing in that space, because things are changing so much. So, thank you.
And just noting as well that this piece of work has been a long time coming, alongside the easier ones along the way as well, and making sure that we've been utilising our power consumption as best as possible, and transitioning our power usage as well. So this next piece of work is a big piece with a lot of background behind it. I'm hopeful that the new council will be positive and receptive of what's put forward in the new training to move forward on this for our council. We do have a lot of space, we do have a lot of rooftops, and we currently, as quantified, have a lot of power usage. One of the challenges with this as well has always been the rate at which we purchase electricity is very low, and so it needs to be not only environmentally appropriate but also fiscally responsible as well. So hopefully with the new information coming to the incoming council, there'll be a really easy business case to support. That being said, I put the recommendations. All in favour say aye. Those opposed, I declare that carried. Thanks, Miriam. Jessica, please join us at the table. We're now on page 46 for the update on solid waste management and minimisation work streams. So over to you if there's anything else to add, but please take your report as read.
Thank you very much. I just have a few more updates on a couple of the pieces in there. For battery recycling, by way of update, the sign writer has finished wrapping the units with the new signage. Phoenix has collected those units and they're being fitted with the fire suppression and monitoring for heat. So we've got an estimated 1 to 2 weeks till delivery, and then we'll be looking at other facilities later in the year with the learnings from the trial. For, I'm not sure if it's the same page reference, but we had a graph included in here on curbside refuse and recycling tonnages at paragraph 13. We had just had another go at looking into that data a little bit more deeply, so I thought I'd share what we found. It looks like one of the drivers for the decrease in the tonnages is sitting in the glass area, where our glass tonnages are dropping slightly faster than other material types. This looks like, from what we can see, it's a bit of a nationwide trend. Not 100% sure on what the drivers are, but it could be cost of living factors, as well as packaging moving from glass to aluminium if it's more logistically simple. So those were the key updates for me. Thank you.
Thank you. Questions? We've got Councillor Parkin first.
Kia ora, thank you for that, and thank you for the note about the glass changing the dynamics. I know that at the Waste Forum that we hosted recently, one of the things that was coming up through that was challenges that just monitoring the total amount of waste or total amount of recycling is becoming a less and less effective measure, simply because actually the best option is that you don't create the waste in the first place. And this seems like it could be stemming from that, a similar thing, that actually the heavy material is therefore not working. Have we looked at maybe doing a volumetric measure?
I don't think so. I think the way that our contracts are set up, it's mostly done on the tonnage side, particularly because we use the materials recovery facility in Seaview, and it might be the way that that's structured. One other point to note that I missed as well is this year is the first time that MFE is collecting the collection tonnages data from councils. So it may be that we're seeing more trends coming out from that now that we've got a base on by material type. So there could be trends and policy design coming from that as well that can help us.
Maybe just to add to that, when we did that analysis in the last couple of weeks to look at what might be happening in the curbside recycling space around why is waste going up but curbside tonnage is dropping slightly, and it's quite a noticeable trend over the last 3 years. And when you then dig into the detail around the waste streams, one noticeable item is actually that aluminium cans, that tonnage is going up. It's nearly doubled. Now, that may be things like consumer choices changing or the supplier choices changing as well. So, for example, beer used to be quite heavily focused on glass bottles, but it's very, you go into a supermarket now and it's very, very much dominated by cans. So, and glass is a very heavy item, so clearly that dropping and any increase in the aluminium waste stream or recycling stream wouldn't offset that reduction. So those are clearly things that are outside of our control. So the recycling volume dropping slightly, I don't think should be taken as an indicator of the service being suboptimal or not working as it should be. So we just need to take care when we look at that data. And in some ways, it also indicates that our KPIs perhaps weren't targeting perhaps the right area, because at the moment the KPIs is around increasing recycling volumes by 2% per year. But if the material changes that we are collecting within it, then maybe that's not the right measure.
Councillor Mitchell, then Deputy Mayor Loss.
Just as a follow-up to that one, occasionally in the past we've done bin audits where we've literally looked at the contents of people's bins, and I guess the ultimate KPI is, are people using the system correctly, or using it and using it correctly? Do you think there is potentially a KPI in there that's a percentage of items that are in the right bin or something like that that might be a bit more appropriate than just pure volume?
Yeah, that's a possibility. So we've done 2 bin audits over the last 3 years. I think the most recent one was last year, is that right? So they are surveys and they are based on a sample of probably about 250 households. So they don't have the same robustness as the data we get from our recycling facility, which will ultimately measure every material that comes through it. But it's a possibility that you could look at alternative KPIs that actually measure, are you using the service correctly, as opposed to are you recycling more because you're buying more?
Oops, yeah, it's a bit tricky to find the right kind of measure for the behaviour we want to see. Can I just go through a couple more questions? Could you just remind me about the battery collection trial, where that's taking place? I think it's been reported to us previously.
I'm just refreshing my memory on, it's War Memorial. Oh wait, no, which ones? War Memorial, Nainai and Eastbourne in the hubs. Thank you.
Thank you. Just in the report on EnviroSchools, it's noted that due to funding changes, the Toimata Foundation is no longer able to hold contracts for the EnviroSchools program in our region, which sounds fairly alarming. I don't know exactly what it means by holding contracts. Good to see that our councils are working together to address that issue, and it is mentioned here that officers would report back on a meeting held in August. So I just wondered if there's any update on that.
No further update at the moment. By way of context, the Wellington region is reasonably unique in the sense that we've been contracting directly with Toimata, whereas in other regions across the country, it's usually done through the regional councils. And that's exactly the model that they're currently exploring. But like any other organisation, there's challenges around FTE levels and whether or not adding that is that a core service for the regional council, even though it's effectively fully funded through the participating councils. So that's being worked through at the moment, and no further update at this stage.
And I can add some further information on the Toimata Foundation. I'm a former trustee of the organisation and spoken to some of the team recently. They've had significant funding cuts from government. So their 2 main programs is EnviroSchools, but also Te Aho Tūroa. So all of their funding for Te Aho Tūroa has been cut, and they're having to look at how they actually operate at the moment. It's a very challenging time for that kaupapa.
So in terms of that, being able to hold contracts, you're really talking about who's receiving the funding, having the staff and delivering the programs.
Yes, that's right, and whether or not Toimata has the capacity to manage that. So I don't think it's an issue with councils and in our case, we fully utilised the waste levy for funding the program. So there's no funding issue, but the question is of who delivers it. That's the main issue.
Thank you. And just another question on Enviro Schools. There's a graph above that which has a few different measures on it, one of which is total outreach to schools and ECEs, and the figure is this year, by the look of things, sitting on 100%. Is that 100% of all schools in Lower Hutt? It is, or just the Enviro
That's
schools?
100% of all schools, and that was the objective we set about 2 or 3 years ago when we changed, when we actually increased the funding for them to be able to reach all schools. That doesn't mean that every school gets the same level of engagement, in the sense that because some schools may not have the capacity to engage at that level, but it measures in what degree some form of engagement has happened with schools, and the idea was to reach 100%. It's a lower level for ECEs, but that's not surprising given the different capacities.
Oh, it's great, even if they're being, contacted and aware of the program, even if they're not fully engaging. That's a really good measure to have put in place, and good to see it's being delivered. The other questions I had were about the C&D waste diversion pilot program. It talks about a swap study that we did and found 20%, 10% by weight C&D materials going through our transfer station and tip face. That's a very different figure, Ewan, to one that we had through the other waste committee from MFE of about 70%, but that was across all types of landfills. Is that the explanation for the difference here?
Yes, that's right. So 70% is across all landfills, and there's a lot of C&D waste that goes to class 2, 3, and 4 landfills. Silverstream is a class 1. So some materials like rubble, for example, is class C&D waste, but that doesn't actually have to go to a landfill with a gas destruction system. So hence why the number for us will be a lot smaller than the 70% that would have been referenced.
Well, and it's very good news that our landfill class 1's not being clogged up by all that stuff, if there are other places it can go to. The other question I had about this pilot project, it talks about transporting waste up to the Manawatu. I just wondered, in terms of that program, at whose cost would that waste be transported up to the Manawatu? Would that be built into tip fees or paid for by something else?
So the trial we're funding out of the waste levy in terms of some of the components, but the participating companies also cover their own costs. So it's very much a collaboration between those 3 parties, and it's a very limited trial. So we're only talking about 10 hook bins, which is probably about 100 and 150 tonnes. And it's really just testing the pathway, if you like. It's definitely not a long-term solution, in particular since at this stage in December, Porirua and Civic are looking to open their construction and demolition waste processing facility, in which case it actually makes sense for any skip bins to go there rather than to the landfill.
Deputy Mayor Lewis, followed by Councillor Edwards.
I only have one question. So, thank you, Andy. Question 12, the paragraphs 12 and 13 in household waste, 50% of refuse bin content survey consists of food and green organic waste. I suppose my question is around in 12 about looking at different ways. Have you any insight as to what you're going to be doing in that space for education?
So I think that the 50% of the refuse bin content that was undertaken in the curbside bin order as part of the FOGO paper. So one of the key things probably in there is having a pathway for where that waste should be going. That being said, there are probably still things that we can do in terms of waste minimisation and encouraging people to compost when they have the ability to do that at home, but also minimising food waste. So there's the National Campaign for Love Food, Hate Waste, which presents like great materials. We do have a licence to use those materials, and so we could probably be doing more about pushing those out when we have the opportunity, especially because there's a cost of living aspect to that as well. If people are learning ways to buy more appropriate amounts of food or the type of food, or even making it last longer and get more out of it.
Add-on question I do have. So how are we going about letting the public know that this is a negative for the landfill? Because we see it in these papers, and and myself and Councillor Mitchell, I know, use that website. I don't know who else does it, but, you know, how many people are using it? How do we let them know that there is a cost all round to the environment and the rates bill, basically?
I don't have any specific projects for this, but it is something the team has actually just recently been talking about, because it is quite a hard topic to explain to people what we mean by what the challenges of waste breaking down anaerobically in the landfill versus it breaking down and being composted and what that actually means. I think that when we start to get down to the bare bones of it, one of the things that's easiest to communicate is about capturing, this is something that's good to put back into the environment. We're taking from it, it should be going back to the land. And I think that's the easiest loop to close. So we do need to have a think about how we're communicating that. And particularly if, you know, if FOGO goes ahead, to make sure that people understand what the problem definition is, not just by tonnage in the bin, but what that actually represents environmentally as well.
Councillor Edwards.
Yeah, thanks. It's amazing when we had feedback to FOGO how many people were against it because they said they compost at home, but the evidence would suggest otherwise with what's going into the bins. But my question, and I hesitate to ask it because it's a very selfish question and it's in contrast to the talk of councils cooperating together, and particularly when I've just learned that Porirua will open up its C&D landfill to the region, but it's very disconcerting to read that Spicer landfill could close as early as 2030. And while obviously the best thing to do is reduce the amount of waste going into any landfill, is it feasible? Is it time to sort of send signals to Porirua that, you know, we're not going to take your rubbish kind of thing to preserve our own landfill? Is that even in the picture, Ewan?
Well, let me answer this in two parts. I mean, generally across New Zealand, we've moved from lots of landfills to actually only a few regional facilities in most instances. So I think if we said to our council, well, you can't dispose your waste in this landfill, you should build your own, that sort of goes counter what's actually happened and the cost involved in actually operating and constructing a landfill. But that doesn't mean that we're not working on options to actually reduce the amount of waste being generated in the first place, or that requires disposal. So the C&D facility that Porirua that Civic is investing in and Porirua is facilitating, we would expect that will make a difference in terms of the amount of material that can be diverted, but clearly other opportunities will need to be explored, and that's one of the reasons why we're looking at the Food and Green Organics Collection Service as one of the other options. So it's probably not feasible to say to a particular council, well, you can't take your waste to this landfill. Effectively, it's available if they're prepared to pay the price for it. But that doesn't mean that, you know, that there isn't more work needed to keep tackling the source of the issue.
Any further questions? No. I'm now going to put the recommendation that we note and receive the update on the various waste management and resource recovery matters in this report. Do I have a seconder? Thank you, Councillor Mitchell. Any discussion? Councillor Mitchell.
Yeah, I just wanted to share a view in response to Councillor Edwards' question, because I do sit on regional waste groups and have for the last couple of triennium, as long as I've been a councillor actually. And in my personal view, and there's, you know, talk about amalgamation and things like that, what we've seen happen with our water services, first proactively by councils, by forming Wellington Water, and more recently with the reforms, my personal view is that waste is probably next in line for a regional approach like that. Like when you think about our water network, we've got a region that has water sources in some cities and others have no water source of their own, and we share that. We have treatment plants in some places and not others, and we share those. And we've got a region of kind of 5 cities, 3 landfills, I know residents who drive from here to Southern Landfill for particular reasons, which we won't discuss today, but there's certainly waste flowing around our region as well. I've challenged our councils previously about things like pricing. Why can't we align pricing better so there's not perverse incentive for someone to schlep their green waste down to Southern Landfill because it's a bit cheaper at the gate than ours, and been told that that would be viewed as price fixing. So I think that if we, had a more coordinated approach actually as a region and looked to an equivalent of Wellington Water for our waste streams, then potentially we could have much better outcomes thinking about waste as a regional issue, but also dealing with our waste as a regional issue. Just a personal view.
Happy to follow on from that, Councillor Mitchell. And thank you, Councillor Edwards, for the prompting question as well. I think there's a good opportunity to actually have some consistency. And part of that's also consistency on how residential waste is collected as well. It's really challenging when multiple cities in the same region have different systems and therefore incentivised to have some really peculiar behaviour. And also that are then contributing to the landfills that do exist because they don't have a recycling system that could be effectively used as well. And we've had this conversation multiple times with our neighbours in Hutt City Council around that, and it's a challenging system, particularly when the most closest landfill for them is Silverstream. And we know that there's waste going there that doesn't need to be going there and it can be diverted. So I think that's a really helpful thing. We've got a couple of councillors at the table that will be guaranteed to be here post-election. I'm sure that they'll happily take that up alongside officers as a conversation piece with the new council. Any further comments? No. And I'll put the recommendation. All in favour say aye. Those opposed say no. I declare that carried. We've received no questions before the meeting. However, I do want to take a brief moment, if the committee will let me, just to acknowledge you all. Firstly to officers, Alison, Ewan and your team, thank you very much for this training and all of your work, your countless hours putting into documentation to actually substantiate your significant work as well is much appreciated by everyone on this committee. Your ongoing reporting, the information you're doing with community, but also the partnerships that you've been forming and maintaining for us as well is really appreciated. I also just want to thank the committee as well, our second term of having this committee, but also particularly Mr. Mayor, thank you for establishing it in the first place and maintaining it this term as well. It's given it the significance that these kaupapa deserve as well. So thank you for your leadership in that space. Last training was very much about learning for all of us and actually making this information normalised and making it a part of council and something that we just do as business as usual. It's been great to be able to maintain this work, this training alongside you all and actually have it, again, just normalised so that it's not a huge deal that we're talking around carbon reduction, waste minimisation, and how we actually operate as a council and as a city. And I hope that this really continues into the new term and whatever function that looks like at a committee level, but actually the work will continue with officers and the strategies that we've already put in place as well. So that gives me some ease as I step away from the committee and council as well. But thank you all for your work this training. It's much appreciated.
Thank you, Councillor Briggs. Just before I make a comment and a thank you to you in particular as chair of this committee, I just want to acknowledge, I think, how far we've come as a council over the last 6 years when it comes to our approach to the environment. I still recall when I was first elected as a councillor back in 2013 and then 2016, and those alongside me who would have been there at the same time will recall sort of a philosophy that we should send as much as we possibly can to the Silverstream landfill because it makes us money and it helps offset our rates increases. That is the type of philosophy that was driving this council. There was a desire to not deal with the recycling bin issue that we had, to put those issues off. And I just want to say that the leadership from the collective, as all of us as governors, not just myself as mayor, has made a huge difference. Employing the right people with the right value system to drive the right change has been massive as well. And we would not have been able to, I think, get to where we are now. And I consider us very much a leader in this space in the country without people like Ewan and his team that he's built, Alison. So I just really wanted to acknowledge you all. And of course, finally, to all the committee members and to you, Councillor Briggs, you have been an absolute champion in this space. And I know that that will continue regardless of what you do into the future as well. So it won't end here. But I just want to thank you for your leadership. And as I said to Councillor Brown yesterday, I've been really happy to be able to see you lead in this role and have always had full confidence that you're steering the ship in the right direction on behalf of the city and on behalf of our residents, and on behalf of our environment as well. So thank you very much for that. I've got a small token just to acknowledge you as chair. And I also have just to acknowledge our deputy chair as well, Chris Parkin, who has a small gift for you as well. So.
Awesome.
I did get a nod from you from the back. If you wish to make a brief comment, you're welcome to it.
Very briefly, if I may, because I know this is the last committee for the year, and there will be some people that won't be here the next one. So I just want to personally thank you for asking some tough questions, because there's nothing more boring than just having a paper that flies through and no one asks any questions. And ultimately, it also increases the robustness of those if you get challenged on a few things. So I'd like to thank you for that, and hopefully with the team now much bigger than it was and much more capable, hopefully we can keep doing what we're doing in the next triennium.
Awesome. Thank you, Ewan. And thank you, Campbell, for your very kind words. We're now going to formally close with our karakia. Please feel free to join in. Me noi tātou, unuhia, unuhia, unuhia I tu urutapu nui, kia wātea, kia māma, te nākau, te tinana, te wairo I te arataka tū. Ko ia rā I rongo, whakahiri ake ki runga, kia wātea, kia wātea. Ai rā, ko wātea, hau, pai mārere. I declare the meeting closed at 2:42. Have a wonderful